Hey Hatchlings, and Eid Mubarak to all my Muslim brothers and sisters out there. Today's video is a highly requested topic from all of your concerning and questioning and curious and very contemplative questions about my practice. We're going to be deep diving into how I am a Muslim witch who follows her dragons, how that even makes sense, how it's possible, how I practice Islam, how I practice witchcraft, how I don't mix the two because that is critically important, and how dragons are part of every step along the way. And if you are new here, Assalamu alaikum, merry meet, and welcome back to your daily dose of DragonFaether. My name is Azura DragonFaether, the Draconic Priestess, the founder of modern-day Draconic Wicca, the first to pioneer dragon magic here online, and the founder and creator of the Hatchling clan, which is just a community of dragon lovers. If you'd like to join us, it's free, the first link in the description down below. And today, I really wanted to just open up the gates, if you will, and share everything about all of your questions regarding my practice as a Muslim witch who follows her dragons. And if you want to know a little bit more about the story of how we got here up into this point, you're definitely going to want to check out my video called How the Dragons Led Me to Allah, My Journey to Islam. This video is basically the prelude to today's episode, sharing how the dragons throughout my whole life have reminded me to always believe in God, especially when my faith struggled. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, but we're going to be sharing today's episode as if you've already seen that episode. So definitely go watch that one first and then come back to this video if you haven't already. And now in my practice, once the dragons have led me to Islam, the most important thing in my practice now is, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and learning how to read the Quran, especially in Arabic. I have my, my Arabic classes that I take, but also it's about salah and prayer. It's about contemplating Allah as well. And it's about my faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and my worship in Him first and foremost. And the reason why I never abandoned the dragons when I found Islam is because the dragons are the ones who led me to Islam, of course. And this is something that I think makes my story a little unique because hey, hi, hello, I've been talking to dragons my whole life. It's just something that's been as natural to me as breathing. It really has been a part of my life ever since I could remember. And something that is not going to change overnight is my love of dragons and my connection with them and how my faith is so strong with them and so much magic that I've already experienced and grew into and loved with the dragons. Yes, my practice definitely has changed since becoming a Muslim, but I have never really relinquished the practice of witchcraft. And the reason why I call myself a Muslim witch is because I practice Islam and I practice witchcraft. And my witchcraft isn't like the witchcraft that is defined by the Quran. So in the Quran, you have two different types of categories that the word witchcraft tends to fall under, which is going to be shirk and sihir. So shirk is essentially comparing anyone to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking assistance or guardianship or deities outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and assigning divine power to anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you have sihir, which is essentially sorcery, deception, delusions. It is making reality not look like it is. It is, mischievousness. It is going to be taking away free will. It's going to be summoning jinn to hurt people. It's going to be separating marriages. It's going to be evil eye, things like that, okay? And the way that I define myself as a witch is through modern definition, okay? So by the modern New Age terms of witchcraft, it's much more broad, especially when you're Englishly speaking, if I may. If you're speaking in terms of the English definition of witchcraft, it's a lot different than the Arabic definition of witch or magic that we see used within the Quran, the Arabic version that's been preserved for almost 1500 years. And this is where the area gets kind of gray. And so I'm essentially practicing a form of witchcraft that is considered witchcraft by modern New Age and pagan definitions. However, it's not considered magic by the Quranic definition. So that is something that we first have to really understand here. And for my Muslim brothers and sisters who are watching me, I hope you guys understand that I am in no way encouraging Muslims to practice. This is not doctrine. I'm not claiming that my practice of witchcraft as a Muslim witch is any way part of the sunnah. No, it is not. This is something that is a personal practice of mine that has completely separation from the Islam that I practice, okay? This is the most critical part of this, okay? Which is the separation of the practices. It is a balance of the two because I utilize both in my life, and that is totally allowed. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me free will to do what I please in this life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave you free will to do what you please in this life. And that's why this life is a test, which means I am only responsible for my own actions the same way that you're only responsible for yours. I'm responsible for putting this video on the internet, but you are responsible for how you act in my comment section. Do you see how that makes sense? So because of that, this is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place, this is my life journey. This is something that feels right to me. This is something that I'm very guided to do. And I have found out that I'm not the only one who practices like this. There are many Muslim witches out in the world who I did not know until I started making content about it. And I wanted to say thank you. So many of you guys have reached out to me personally asking me never to stop and thanking me for representing you because you feel like you don't have a voice out there. It's really scary standing up as a Muslim witch, and I didn't realize when I first started creating content about this. And something else that I think people might forget as well is that this channel, I've always really advocated for a belief in God and a belief in witchcraft and magic. That wasn't new for me, okay? I have a video on Christian Wicca if you're interested. It's in the cards for you. And I also have a video called I Am a Witch Who Loves God that will also be in the cards for you if you're interested in watching some of my older content guided by my fitra or guided by my innate desire to be with God and connect with God as we believe as Muslims. And this is something that, is really, really special to me looking back on my life journey now that I'm a Muslim, looking at some of these videos where I talk about God and I talk about God as a witch and I talk about God within magic. And for a while there, I was, working in like a Christian Wiccan setting with Jesus and Mary as like God and Goddess example, but yikes. But this is just part of the journey to Islam for me. And I know that might not be comfortable for many people. The fact that I didn't just find Islam and decided to change my mind and all of my beliefs and all of my opinions about people overnight. No, I think that's ridiculous and silly. Your religion isn't supposed to make you a bigot overnight. Like, what does that even mean? And it's really problematic if you find a religion that makes you immediately afraid of other people and makes you immediately demonize other people and makes you immediately go us versus them. Like, that should never happen when you find a religion that's actually helping you and benefiting you. And this is why I share my practice as a Muslim witch, because I do walk both paths. When I do my witchcraft, it looks so much different than every other witch that I know because I am Muslim. But that doesn't mean that it's not a form of witchcraft. And ultimately, Allah knows my heart, and Allah is the only one who can judge us, which is why I think anyone in my comment section is kind of funny, because I am a free woman who has the right to religious freedom. I can practice and do what I want, and I also have the free will given by God to do so, and only He can hold me accountable for my actions. Only He can decide if what I'm doing is right or wrong. You have no power here. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power here, and that has given my life so much peace, okay? So this is why I ultimately still identify as a witch, because I do rituals that are like in the traditional witchcraft sense. I do still build altars. I do still work with dragons. I do still all of those things. The only difference is that I'm not summoning them the way that I used to. I wasn't ever really summoning them, but I even don't light candles for them saying I light this in honor of blah, 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 hail and welcome, just because that is not my practice anymore. And it doesn't mean that anyone who practices that way is wrong. And I don't understand why people like to jump to that conclusion, because that's a little goofy in my opinion. We all have religious freedom, okay? That means you can practice whatever you want and I can practice whatever I want, and we can share our stories and we can learn together and we can, be kind and celebrate each other's differences and similarities. It doesn't have to be weird, okay? It doesn't have to be this war zone. You don't have to make it this whole big who has the better belief. No, that's weird. The only point that matters is your path for you. You are responsible for your own craft, for your own belief system, for your own journey in this life, just like I'm responsible for mine. And that is the only real message that I'm here to share, since becoming Muslim is just we all deserve space to exist, because any single time you try to change what I believe or what I try to change what you believe, that's how oppression starts. That's how hurting people starts. And ultimately, this is why the dragons are still a huge part of my practice too, because the dragons were the ones that taught me about the diversity of the human experience. Why? Because there's dragons everywhere in all of human culture throughout all of history, from communities and, cultures that could have never contacted each other, never had interactions with each other, and somehow there's still some kind of dragon mythology, some sort of dragon history within the myths, legends, and lore of people around the world. You can't just make that up, right? And in my eyes, as a Muslim witch who follows dragons, that is a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his divine wisdom showing us through the dragons that all of us are more similar than we think. All of us are more alike than we are different, and yet look at the diversity in the dragons. We are so much more alike than we are different, yet we still have differences, which again are just signs of Allah's infinite wisdom in my eyes as a Muslim witch who follows her dragons. And also, as a Muslim, I am commanded to learn. Doesn't really say about what I learn about, right? I'm commanded to learn and pursue education. And what I love to do is pursue knowledge and education within the history and mythology of dragons, okay? This shows me so much about not only the etymology of words and dragons specifically, but also how human cultures have evolved over time, also the differences within human cultures throughout the world and their similarities through their dragon mythology alone. That is truly their portals to the diversity of the human experience. And it's so fascinating seeing how different cultures around the world will sometimes personify their dragons as glorious, all-powerful gods, and some of them will demonize their dragons as if the epitome of evil themselves. And this paradox really just captivates my whole heart and soul, and has always captivated my heart and soul. And if it wasn't for the dragons and my love for the dragons, ever since I was little, starting with my dragonology books, shout out to the dragonology books, okay? If it wasn't for those books that showed me little tiny snippets or breadcrumbs of dragons being in the mythology of all around the world, I wouldn't have been so fascinated with learning about mythology and learning about religion and faith and spirituality from all sorts of human practices around the world. And this is something that has intimately informed my experience, not only as a witch, but just as a human being. I've always just been so gravitated and magnetized towards anything that has to do with dragons, and it's been that way ever since I could remember. And that's not just going to change overnight, you know what I mean? Yeah, my perception of the dragons shapeshifts, my work with them shapeshifts as much as the dragons do, and as much as I do while working with them. But the only difference is now, and never really has been this way, because I've never really worshipped dragons. I've called upon dragons, like elemental dragon guardians, like what I pretty much popularized with the modern version of Draconic Wicca, which is calling upon the elemental dragon guardians from DJ Conway's books in a four-corner type of ritual, like a Wiccan type of ritual, if you will. And this is something that I used to do very prominently in my practice and in my craft, but I don't really do that anymore because I don't really need to. I've kind of evolved past that, and I do still work with elemental dragon guardians, and I still work with elemental dragon rulers I always have in my craft, but it's just a little different now. And that's kind of the beauty of working with dragons too, is that they're different for everybody, and they can mean and represent and show themselves different for everybody. Some people don't even believe they're real, they just believe they're symbols. But I believe that dragons are very real, and that they're just one of Allah's creations, and he's so wise for creating the dragons the way that he did, and in my personal opinion are one of the biggest signs of Allah's infinite wisdom. But that's just how I see it, right? And not everybody has to see it that way. It doesn't mean that the way that I see the world is true or righteous or anything like that. It just means that this is my unique experience, and I'm entitled to that, just like how you're entitled to your unique experience, because anyone trying to stop you from believing in what you believe in, anyone who tries to take your religion away from you, who tries to take your spirituality away from you, tries to take your faith or your beliefs away from you, or anything like that, are actively oppressing you. Like, unless your belief systems, your actions, and your faith and all of that is actively hurting and oppressing other people and taking away their free will and taking away their liberties and their autonomy, that's when it becomes an issue that people need to step in and, like, you know, correct. But otherwise, let people do what they want with their faith and with their religions and with their practices, because it's not about anything other than a personal connection. And when people take these things and they do it on a massive scale and they start, you know, saying you can't do this, you can't do that, like you have to convert or we'll kill you, like this is evil, okay? And you can do that with anything at the front table, and a lot of people like using religion to do that because it seems to give a pretty solid, you know, like excuse for people to just go murder each other. And that's awkward because that was never what is supposed to happen. Even with Abrahamic religions, these books tell us not to kill people, okay? But I digress. The problem is, for me, is that like my craft is so unique and so informed by my own personal experiences that I could never expect anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to understand. And that's the beauty of the craft that I follow. And that is also the mercy of Islam in my life now, because I was getting to such a point to where I was just like reaching and reaching and reaching for something more than anything I could get my hands on. And then I found Islam, and then I understood Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the creator of everything. And that really grounded my practice, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of everything in my craft. He's the creator of the witchcraft, the magic, the dragons, the other deities, the false idols that you want to call them if you're Muslim, according to the Quran, right? And like all of the elementals and all of these, you know, the tools, the tarot cards, the wand, the horns, the everything, right? You know, the myths, the legends, like in my eyes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created those too, right? And I'm simply here to observe that and learn from the wisdom that's left and utilize what I learn from my studies to improve myself, to help me evolve, to help my community, to give back to people, to, you know, uplift others, to stop corruption in the land. Because as much as I love Islam, as much as I love being Muslim, you know, organized religion is still problematic and still hurts people. And I see how Islam and organized Islam still hurts and oppresses people. And that's something that I'm not here to ignore or just to swipe away to the side. Like, no, like I'm here to look at all of it and its nuanced messiness. Like that is what I do. That's what I've always done. And, you know, especially with always talking about, you know, my love for God and, you know, my connection to God, especially being raised Mormon and being abused in the Mormon church and then leaving that, not abandoning my faith in God was a huge task for me. It was so much easier for me to just forget God and be like, no, I'm good. But my dragons never let me. And that is what's beautiful about my journey. And that's my testimony, you know, because I believe that the world is so much more interconnected than you could ever understand, than I could ever understand, in such a way that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself could know. That like our only responsibility here is to enjoy and discover and explore and to be embodied in how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us. And each person is made so uniquely and individually, and they have their own identities and their own way of speaking and their own way of being and identifying. That is diversity. That is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my eyes. And my magic was originally as like a way for me to cope with things that, you know, I struggled with, a way for me to, you know, get my power back when people hurt me. It was a way for me to safeguard myself and feel like I was always protected. But now my witchcraft is nothing like that. Now my witchcraft is a tool for me to glorify my Lord. It's a tool for me to self-soothe myself. It's a tool for me to evolve myself now. It's not a tool for me to attack others. It's not a tool for me to cope. It's not a tool for me to do anything like that other than, you know, focus on being who I want to be. It's not about anyone else anymore but me. And that is the gift that Allah has given me. By being Muslim, it radically shifted my witchcraft overnight when I realized I was Muslim and I realized what that meant for my witchcraft. It made me understand, not abandoning witchcraft, no, my loves. It reminded me, in my eyes as a Muslim, it reminded me that the source of magic was always God. And this is why it makes sense. And if you don't work with witchcraft in the modern New Age way that I have for 20 plus years before I found Islam and still do today, and you don't practice and understand Islam, the ancient tradition that has largely remained unchanged for 1500 years, if you don't understand these two types of practices, then you will never understand my craft, especially if you don't even understand dragons in a historical or mythological sense, because all of these are critical points to my craft that make me who I am today. And ultimately, that's how I'm a Muslim witch who follows her dragons. And I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I hope that it answered your questions. And I'm, of course, always so happy to answer your questions. If you have more, leave them in the comments down below. But again, Eid Mubarak to my Muslim brothers and sisters. If you made it this far in the video, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today and making plenty of dua to our Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about dragons and their magic, don't forget to join the Hatchling clan Discord server. It is the first link in the description down below. But I will see you guys tomorrow. I can't wait to share some more magic with you guys for Serpent Sunday. But if you missed yesterday's episode, you don't want to miss it because I built an altar for Tiamat, the dragon goddess herself. It's very exciting, so I would love to hear your opinions on it and what you would do differently or how you enjoyed it in the video previously. But I will see you so very soon, tomorrow in fact. But until next time, stay geeky, cheeky, and freaky, my little hatchlings. Khudafis, blessed be, Ameen. And please follow me so I don't get lost.
We'll see you back next time for your